What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking back in with us. All right, man, let's get ready for part two of my interview with Scoop Jackson. Hope you enjoy it. All right, man. You've been pretty outspoken about how women are treated in sports for a long time, and the way you have that conversation is it's different than a lot of people just have the surface level conversation about pay equity and things like that. But it's interesting the way you bring that up. Like I've seen you say before that, women are more dominant in sports than men, and that's, like a factual statement
Yeah, it
because
is.
we've seen women do things that men have never done in their
Never
sports.
done. Never. Yeah.
Like, so do you, like, when you look at how that conversation is had now, do you think, progress has been made in that regard, or like, where do you sit with that?
I don't know if progress has been made, but I think that more people are open to accepting that dominance and applying it across the board.
Mm.
Like I think the fact that Serena Williams happens to be in the general GOAT conversation is something that wouldn't happen 10 years ago.
Mm.
Like when we're talking about the greatest athletes of all time, Serena's name would not have been mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is. And it's not, to me, it's not because of what she's done over the last 10 years. It's because we as a society, especially us in the media, have recognized that her dominance is equal to that type of dominance of any male that has played any sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in all honesty, Steffi Graf did what Serena's already done. She's done that. We're sitting around here. Look, man, we made a whole thing this year about Novak Djokovic possibly winning, the year Grand Slam. Like he won, just him winning all 4 Grand Slam tournaments, winning all 4 slams in a single year. Mm-hmm. That was a big deal. Hadn't been done since Rod Laver did it 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. Steffi Graf won all 4 tournaments at least 4 times. Do you know how we be holding a man up if he did something like that?
Right.
So my point in Serena is that we've seen, no disrespect, but we've seen that type of dominance being done by a woman before. But now we're living in a space where that type of dominance is at least getting a woman into the general conversation.
Right, yeah.
Whereas when we talk about who's the greatest tennis player of all time, it's not just the way it was back in the day. Now it is Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, Serena Williams. Mm-hmm. It's a 4-person conversation where back in the day, Rod Laver, Bjorn Borg, John McEnroe, you keep going, and never would anybody mention like a Steffi Graf. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we've seen some evolution from a society standpoint and from a media standpoint, where we are, and I hate to use the word inclusion in this manner, but we are at least including women in the general conversation. Mm-hmm. When Nike used Serena's commercial and removed the greatest female athlete of all time, and they took out the word female. That was a controversial thing that they did. And that was only 5 or 6 years ago? I think I forgot how long. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Right. But now, and it shows you how, change is slow, but it still does happen. Now it's not controversial. It's like, mm-hmm. All right, it's understood.
Right.
It's understood. It is understood that yes, she is in that conversation. Have we gotten to a point where, as I said in the book, got to a point where we'll ever consider a female at the top of that conversation? She'd have to do something that, I have no idea. But like music, I said it in the book. When Rolling Stones did their 500 greatest singers of all time, and they named Aretha Franklin the top singer, one white magazine, black female singer. Now, there's no argument across. I never saw anybody really argue with that.
Right.
I never heard anybody say no. It should be Celine Dion. No, it should be Barbara Streisand. No, it should be. No, it should be whoever. Frank Sinatra. Never heard any of that, because the next person I heard in line after that, people argued it should be Whitney Houston. You know, I don't think we'll ever get to a place in sports where you have two women, especially two Black women, at the top of a conversation, at the top of a GOAT conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Like Jordan, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, Babe Ruth, however you want to go down the line. I don't think we're at a place in sports where there'll be, I don't care how great Breonna Stewart is going to become as a basketball player, because she may be the GOAT. We may be watching the GOAT in women's basketball, and she may be more dominant or have a greater career than LeBron. Who knows? We don't know. Serena's already in this cup. We don't know what's going to happen after that. To be honest with you, even with what happened in the last Olympics, Simone Biles should be in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll get to a point where a woman will ever be in that GOAT conversation above or in line in argument, not in line, in argument with the Bradys and the Jordans and the Ruths, and the Gretzkys. I don't think sports, we're at that stage yet.
Mm-hmm.
But at least, the conversation is being had. So, when we talk about the Michael Phelpses and the Usain Bolts,
mm-hmm.
now Simone Biles is in that conversation.
Right.
And as great as Simone is, we can't act like there have not been other women athletes that should have been in the same conversation but weren't. Now we're in a time where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's yeah, man, I think it's just an ongoing thing. And I think something that holds that, that recognition back is people kind of I think honestly, and this will probably never happen, I think a woman would have to beat a man, you know what I'm saying, for people to kind of view them on the same length. Like, because when people talk about the best basketball teams ever, you never hear about the Houston Comets.
Never.
Like, their banners aren't even in the Rockets stadium. Like, and that's crazy to me.
Yes.
So I mean, yeah, I don't think people are mature enough to kind of.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Are people not mature enough, or are people not male enough? Is it a problem about the decision makers being male? Is it a problem about the media being so predominantly male?
Yeah, that.
Is it about who's actually telling these stories and making the decisions? Because maturity is one thing, but I'm not saying the people that are making the decision are immature. I'm saying most of the decisions that we talk about, when it's based on the hierarchy of sports,
mm-hmm.
and the respect that is given, those people are more male than they are, immature.
Yeah.
So who makes the decision of putting banners up? What is it? The Comets? What is it? What center is it that they play in?
Toyota Center?
Yeah, the Toyota Center, right. Whose decision is it to put the banners up in the Toyota Center? I could be wrong, but I can guarantee you it ain't mostly women. Who's running the media outlets that have the conversation about continuing telling the story of where we start this GOAT debate at.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't a bunch of women.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that definitely make a difference.
So my thing is that I'm not challenging you on the immaturity. I'm just questioning it as whether it's immaturity or whether it's just the predominance of males being the ones that make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to sports and finding or respecting women's rightful places in these conversations or in these spaces.
Yeah, now you making sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, just like, you know, when you were talking about earlier about, you know, changing what it looks like in the suite, you know, getting more black faces in there, you know, as long as that room stays the same.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. The exact same thing. So yeah, I just it's and sports, because it's rooted in competition and because most times it's rooted in competition, but it breathes through physicality for the most part.
Yeah.
And as long as there's physicality, that people tend to believe gives sports its breadth, as opposed to competition, because competition is different than physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Like chess and checkers are sports, but they're sports because they're rooted in what? Competition. Mm-hmm. Right. There's no physical advantage anybody really has over anybody when it comes to those two particular sports.
Right.
But because most sports are given the breath and they feel they breathe because of physicality, the male dominance is always going to prevail over women's contributions to it.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to be said that we are more physically dominant than you. Mm-hmm. Not more dominant, but more physically dominant, in that we are stronger, we are faster, we have longer endurance, you know, all the stuff that comes with physicality is going to be applied when it comes to sports. And that also is an add-on to my belief of why women are, for the most part, always going to have an uphill struggle for finding equal footage when it comes to not only the participation of sports, but the conversation of sports.
Yeah.
As a whole, which goes to your point, is that women are going to have to get to the stage where they normally defeat men in certain sports in order for that ideology to even begin to make any type of shift. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
We're still dealing with, you know, coaches, John Gruden or whatever, having problems with women refereeing games, let alone refereeing games they got problems with. So that ideology is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like, for people to even say you're not equipped to even referee this sport, that's that male toxic mentality that is inside of sports, and it, to me, is dealing with the physicality of it. Mm-hmm. Not only have you not played this sport at the NFL level, but you're not even in physical condition to keep up and down the court with the players. How can you make calls and judge the outcome of these games?
Right.
Like, you don't even know what it feels like to be hit by a linebacker. What do you know about this? You know, all this other crazy ass thinking that has to be applied in order for us to include women in a level playing field conversation. So yeah, it's gonna have to take women to defeat men on a constant level at various sports in order for that type of change to happen.
Yeah,
but,
man.
And I say this on this,
Uh-huh.
but the real thing we need to do is look at ourselves as a society, and us as men to really look at ourselves as men and wonder why we can't just respect them for doing what they do in their own lane and respect that as equal.
Right. Yeah. Like that's where I kind of begin my conversation when people, talk down on the WNBA. I'm like, and then the first thing 90% of the people say is they don't dunk. I'm like, if that's your baseline for good basketball, then you don't know basketball.
Right.
Like, so.
Like how many dunks do we actually get in a game?
Right.
Seriously, how many dunks do we actually get in a game? So you may get, if you get 10 dunks in a game of basketball over the course of how many possessions? Probably
100.
Right, hundreds of possessions in a game, and you might get 10 dunks out of a game. And that's your basis of why you don't watch an entire sport. Because of something that happens less than 10% of the time. Okay, if you want to go with that, cool.
Yeah, man.
But that shows me who you are.
Exactly.
You're about something else besides just the nature of the competition and them competing at their highest level.
Yeah, man. It's ignorance at its finest.
That's really kind of what it is, but it's male ignorance. It's our ignorance.
Yeah.
It's our ignorance of not being able to even look past that and looking at the beauty of the execution, the dominance that they do show, and doing it at their level. We can't question. Well, we can't really put into question. I'd say we can't question. We can't put into question why we as human beings were made to have these physical differences when it comes to gender. We can't control that. But as human beings, we have the right to respect that difference, right, and respecting it at that level and not looking at one level as being inferior to the other. If that level is the top level, there's nothing women can do to change that. Like, all right,
it's gonna be that way forever, man.
It's gonna be that way, right? It's gonna be that way. We are so, stuck on this male hierarchy way of thinking, and this male rule way of thinking that we generalistically are incapable of not thinking of women athletes and women athletics as being inferior.
Yeah, that's basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, that's really what it boils down to. And I hope it gets to the point that they publicly check us on this.
Yeah. Yeah, that conversation has gotta happen at some point.
Yeah. I've tried to have those conversations, especially in the space that I'm in. But it's not going to hit the way it's supposed to hit until they start calling us out on this.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, like, what do you think about the landscape of sports journalism right now? The topic you just brought up, like how do you just feel about, the way sports are being covered today as opposed to yesteryear, or just what's going on in general?
To get to the crust of how I feel about it is I miss the long form storytelling. I miss writers being able to deal with subjects and subject matters that are connected to sports and really, really telling stories about those sports and those individuals that participate in them. And long stories, like the in-depth, thought-provoking stories that stay with you for years. Yeah, I miss that form of storytelling being the norm. Now I can't lie. I have read over the course of the last couple of years some amazing stories by sports writers because they haven't had the access, because they haven't had the access they were used to having. So it's forced journalists to tap into a skill set that they for the most part been able to avoid because they let their access speak for them. So now they have to speak in the skill set of creating. Like, oh snap, I don't have access to this athlete or this game being in front of me.
Right.
Because I'm not at the stadium anymore. I don't have hours to spend with that athlete anymore, but I still have to tell this story. So now it's on me to create. And I'm not saying make up false information, but dive into your ability to tell stories that represent that sport or that athlete. I've seen and I've read like stories over the last couple of years that I know I would have never read 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago because sports journalism has changed so much and we've gotten so far away from the writers basically taking the responsibility of not just informing the public, but shaping how the public can see this sport or the people that are playing and participating in this sport. You know, like I did a piece on Usain Bolt for ESPN years ago. And it wasn't about what he did. It was about the beauty of the arrogance that he had doing it. And where people are looking at his trash talk, his behavior, shit, not, when you're that good, there's beauty in, right? That's what's been missing in my mind. And those are stories that can be told. We can also tell stories about like what he's done and the record he's broken, how great of an athlete he is. But I'm talking about the space that used to be allowed to tell other things from other angles about the people who participate in sports and the sport itself. About not just looking at Usain Bolt's numbers or looking at his records or looking who he beat or look at the event itself, but looking at the nuance and telling the story of the arrogance that he brings to that table. That's a story.
Yeah.
We don't have the space now to tell that story because you can't tell that story in a blog.
Right.
You don't have the space. You can't tell that story on Twitter. You don't have the space. You can't tell that story on a website because websites really don't give you space now to tell that story. If they do, they give it to you once every blue moon. You don't get that on a regular basis because we're living in a space right now where we are being told that nobody has the interest or attention span to go that route. Nobody's going to engage in that anymore. Nobody's going to spend 20 minutes, 25 minutes reading one story. They're not going to do that. You literally right now have 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And that's it, because people are on to the next one. And I get that to be a fact, but I don't get it to be the whole story. I think there's room for all of this now, but I don't think that form of storytelling needs to be extinct.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I think is one of the problems we're having right now in sports journalism, is that form of storytelling and that form of journalism is becoming extinct.
Mm.
And from a written standpoint, it exists very well vocally and visually, but it doesn't exist now literally, as far as writing is concerned. From a literary standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
the opinion is being tossed out the window. Like everything from a journalistic standpoint, as far as writing, the written word is fact-based, not opinion-based. Part of that is because of analytics, but another large part of that is that we're in an industry now that believes that people's vocal opinion is much more in demand than people's written opinion in sports. Look around, you very rarely see any sports columnists anymore.
Yeah.
We're gone. We're gone. We're just done. Like we're fossils. It's done. So the opinions are left for television. The opinion are left for podcasts. The opinions are left for quote unquote blogs, and most blogs are independent now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that shift is kind of unique to me, because I think one of the beauties of sports journalism is that we have opinions. And those of us that have been in the game and covered the game and covered the people that participate in the games and the people that have ownership roles in the game have seen enough to form opinions that could add to the way and add to the shape of the way that people think, as opposed to just verbalizing it. Because 9 times out of 10, verbalization in sports journalism is equal to freestyle in hip hop.
Ah, yeah.
It's akin to, being in a battle. Mm-hmm. It's whatever's off the top of your dome is what comes out of you, as opposed to having the ability to sit down and craft something that's going to make you think.
Yeah.
So the beauty of hip hop is that both exist. You can have Black Thought, you can have Vic Mensa, you can have, Common, go on, Funk Flex or Sway's show and do 10-minute freestyles that'll blow your mind, like, oh my God. But you can also have, a Rhapsody or J. Cole or Kendrick or a J.I.D., literally sit down and say, you know what? I'm gonna drop this jewel on there. Mm-hmm. It's gonna take me 2 days to write this, but I'm gonna drop it on there. And there's room for both to exist.
Right, yeah.
People that doesn't happen in sports journalism anymore. It's all about the freestyle. Mm-hmm. So you don't have those thought-provoking pieces or that thought-provoking space for journalists, sports journalists, to get down and tell stories in a whole different way that will make you rethink what Stephen A. just said, or what Max just said, or what Shannon Sharp and Skip just said.
Right.
Damn, you know what? I never looked at it that way. Now, the way you never looked at it that way is because Skip, Shannon, all these other dudes, they have a certain amount of time in order to get their point across. Because then that point is done, it's on to the next. That point is done, it's on to the next. Or we only got an hour to do all of this.
Right.
Whereas sports journalism, from a writing standpoint, you got space, man. like you can bring up points aside that, yeah, I never thought about that. You know, I never thought about all of this. Like you're giving me things to think about that I never, ever thought of. And to not have that existing as the normal right now saddens me, because I think we're almost minimizing we're minimizing our contribution to the storytelling of sports when we don't allow both of these to exist. That's the best way I can say. And that's kind of the way I feel about sports journalism right now, is that lane is extinct right now. And it's I think it's sad. I mean, I don't want to say sad, I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think, like we were just talking about the retro sneakers, I think there's something about the quality of that type of work that sooner or later is going to come back around and people are going to appreciate.
Yeah, I can see that.
So they'll go back and start tapping into some of the stories, like I said, that a Gary Smith wrote or a Ralph Wiley wrote, or that whoever. The stories that were done back in the day and say, man, I wish I could read, you know, or Tom Gennard, you know, just whoever, you know, and say these cats were doing it back in the day. Who's doing this now?
Right, yeah.
And, right. So it's like looking at what Tinker Hatfield, you know, did, or, you know, or Bruce Kilgore did, you know, with designing shoes back in the day, sneakers back in the day, and saying and appreciating that because it's now considered retro. And that, yeah, they don't make shoes like that anymore, but I appreciate that quality and that craftsmanship and the time it took to make that shoe. And I don't necessarily have to appreciate them, but you bring somebody like Virgil to it and he's adding on to it.
Right.
I'm fucking with that. So now you're getting the best of both worlds, but it's still long form storytelling. Because it's not like Virgil did this overnight. Virgil's like, man, it took me 2 years to take their concept and add on to it. And now I'm giving you, see, that's what I'm talking about. It's not just changing, all right, we're going to take a dunk and give it a new colorway, and that's it. We're going to put it on, we can do that in 10 seconds. No. It means taking that old school form of journalism, taking new journalists to add on to that old school form of journalism. And now we're going to give you new journalism done the old way. Now we all happy. Now we're all happy. And I use that analogy, as crazy as it is, as far reaching as it is, to make a point that we can have both exist. We can even have both exist in the same space.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We have to be open to it. But we're living in a space, we're living at a time where people are really believing that there's no interest for that. And I think it's sad. And I do still believe that I think there is an interest to it. I think it may not be popular, but I think, you know, once it gets around and goes in cycle, there will be an interest to it because there's so much quality in that.
Yeah, definitely.
So much quality in that journalism. You know, so that's kind of the way I feel. But at the same time, while I take issue, I guess, with that, I do love, from a sports journalism standpoint, once again, how dark the room has gotten over the years. You know, and how many more Black faces and women faces I see telling stories now, having the opportunities and, you know, having the positions to, or earning and forcing themselves in a position to be a part of this history and tell these stories. I love the fact that I get to see what I didn't see before, or not a lot of it. You know, a lot of these Black athletes having people that look like them talk to them and seeing that comfortability. Knowing that, man, this person, you know, probably has a greater understanding of what I'm going through or what it took for me to get here than somebody that is disconnected from any part of who I am from a cultural or gender standpoint. So when you go into a WNBA locker room or you go to a WNBA game and you see the players speaking to women journalists, when you go to tennis tournaments or soccer matches, where it's women's soccer or it's, the US Open or the French Open on the women's side, you see women journalists and women camera people, and women reporters. When you see them speaking to other women and women athletes understanding like, yo, thank you. Because it's always been these people that can't connect with me, that understand what I'm going through, that I've been speaking to and telling my story to. Seeing Black athletes talk to people that come from the same neighborhood that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And having that fundamental understanding, oh, yo, bro, you get it.
Right.
You get the shit I had to go through to get here. You get why I keep my boys, keep my fellas around me. You get why I keep my, oh, you're not going to call my friends a posse. I get you. Thank you. There's been a lot of that change, and that there's a beauty in that. That basically even overrides the fact, in my mind, that the long form story of sports journalism or the long form storytelling in sports journalism is done. It's been canceled. But the seeing that connection, seeing athletes being able to find some type of solace in the people that they're able to share their story with is a beautiful thing. Is a beautiful thing. Now, I also see the power of athletes taking control of their own storytelling.
Yeah.
Which I think is the gift and the curse of this entire industry right now. Because I like the fact that athletes do feel the need to control their own narrative. I still think that in order to get the best out of that narrative, people that tell stories need to be at the forefront of that narrative being told.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because
it's like non-filmmakers doing documentaries.
Right.
Like anybody can pick up a camera and tell a documentary, but it's going to be the story itself or the film itself, the documentary itself will be better if somebody who's done this or doing this for a living, if it's in their hands.
Absolutely.
The small new, because the beauty in all genius is in the details. And I think there's a difference in handing those details over, handing the project over to somebody who understands the importance of those details, as opposed to somebody who feels they're closer to it. So I love to see a documentary being done on Kevin Durant. Or I'd love to see a book being done on Kevin Durant. That doesn't necessarily mean I'd like Kevin Durant to be the one to tell it. And I get him being in the space where I don't trust none of you mofos, so I'm gonna do it myself.
Right.
And that's fine. But because this is not what you do for a living, because this is not what you have spent your whole life trying to do, when there are those who have spent their whole lives doing this, the project itself is going to be better. And you'll give the project a better life if it's in the hands of someone who basically does this for a living. That's kind of where I'm at with that. And the fact that it seems to not being done I think we're missing out on a lot of better storytelling if there was more of a collaborative effort with the athlete and journalists in order to tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read Andre Agassi's book, Autobiography, Open?
No.
Okay, if you haven't read it, since you haven't read it, I suggest order the book.
Mm-hmm.
Get the book. It is the perfect example of what I'm speaking about right now. It's the athlete telling his story, but being smart enough to get somebody that does this for a living to tell it.
Mm.
It's one of the most amazing reads you'll ever have, because it's Andre feeling so comfortable and trustworthy with the person he told the story to the writer,
mm-hmm.
but also giving it to somebody who does this for a living and who does it at a very, very high level.
Mm-hmm.
At an extremely high level.
Okay.
That's where the beauty is. That's it. Get the book, read it. Talk to me next year after you get to reading it, and you'll be like, okay, I get it. And that's an example of what I think is missing. I love the fact that athletes have their own voice and they're utilizing this, especially with the platforms like the Player Tribune and all this and the other. But I still think that there's still room to make their stories better, make their stories greater.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories I've ever done was a story I did on Baron Davis. And it's Baron's story. I asked Baron Davis one question. One question. He gave me an hour and 15-minute answer.
Wow.
But it's his story. But in order for you to read that story, it took a writer to shape that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Never put words in his mouth, never did anything, but just those small nuances of crafting that answer into a story.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, man. Because it's just not their wheelhouse, and isn't
what they do is not our wheelhouse.
Right.
Right. That's what it boils down to. So when Baron Davis is telling me the story about playing basketball in the backyard or behind his grandmother's house when he was a kid, because that's all they had. An athlete tells that story, but a writer, stop, Baron. Give me some details.
Right, yeah.
Was it concrete? Was it grass? Was it an alley? Was the basket on a pole? What type of shoes did you have on? Did shoes have holes in them?
Mm-hmm.
What was the basketball rubber? Was the rubber coming off the basket? All those really, really unique details. Did the rim have a net?
Was it a milk crate?
Those are big. But that's something that somebody that doesn't do that for a living never thinks of. They're just telling you the story. And athletes say, look, man, this is the life I live, this, that, and the other. They go through it. But if you hand that same story over to a writer will inject those little nuances that give that story a connectability where you, the reader, don't just feel the story, you actually live it. Because you're like, I know what that alley looks like now. I've touched that dirt. Or I know, like he could say, I played ball in the park down the street from my house. And he'll tell you it was Crenshaw Park, whatever. He'll tell that story. So Crenshaw Park, that's cool. The writer will be the one, did they have nets? Or did you all not have nets? or was it a chain net? Because guess what? If you all play the chain nets make sound.
Mm-hmm.
As a writer, when I'm telling Baron Davis' story, if I include the sound that chain net makes, you as a reader, like, I know that sound. You connect with the story in a whole different way, just from including the sound of that net, because you played on that net. It doesn't have to be the Crenshaw Park. It's just any chain you connect with in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the small things I'm thinking are missing in athletes taking control of their own narratives, because those are the nuances that make the story from being good to great, from making the story dope to I'm gonna remember this story for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
That's the difference from letting Michael K. Williams as Omar on The Wire have that scar, that real scar on his face, and them at HBO not saying we need to cover that scar with makeup. Letting that scar live is that little detail.
Mm-hmm.
That scar changes everything. That scar is his character. It gives his character. That's kind of what I'm getting at with this. Journalists give athletes stories, character.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that it doesn't have character, but it's the character inside the character to make that stuff great. And that's when you don't include the writer, the journalist, in telling your story, that's what's missing. And that's the difference between good and great. And we got a lot of that going on in sports journalism right now.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of that connective tissue is missing. So do you think, like, with the absence of the long form storytelling, and then this kind of thing you're talking about right now, do you think the removal of that kind of gave way to this clickbait hot take culture we're in?
I don't think so. I think the clickbait hot take culture came before and established what we're talking about, gave it the space to exist.
Mm.
I think it came afterwards. I do think ESPN played a large role from a non-social media standpoint to create this clickbait hot take existence that does exist on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're thinking long ago that debate was the primary format in which we were going to program most of our television shows off of. That short form of intense dialogue shaped the way social media approached sports journalism.
Mm.
Like, there's always been this unwritten rule in journalism itself that what bleed leads. That's always been it. But ESPN gave that concept another platform, whereas we're going to shorten that concept into small segments. And we're going to feed this out to the world every day on every show.
Mm.
So whether it's Pardon the Interruption, whether it's First Take, whether it's Around the Horn, pick your show. It's going to be quick thought, debate, boom, 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 boom. This came long before, not really long before, but it set the stage for the internet from a sports journalism context to follow suit.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to start, okay, we'll take the same platform and apply it here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're taking the if it bleeds, it leads concept and applying it to what ESPN has perfected and applying it to right now. So everything's got to be quick hitting. Everything's got to be confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's got to be got to hit hard. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's kind of I'm not gonna say I don't like it, but it kind of pollutes these conversations,
It does.
because like now it's either a firm stance this way, and then you, in order to have dialogue, you got to be firmly on a complete polar opposite, but I don't think conversations should always be that way.
They're not conversations, they're debates.
Yeah.
And it would be fine if you didn't put a stopwatch on it. If you allowed the debates to flush themselves out, that would change everything. But the fact that, we got 2 minutes to do this before we move on to the next subject. Okay. You're really not having any forward-thinking conversations that could lead to greater conclusions or greater understanding. It's great television. And that's what it's supposed to be. That's why I think ESPN is so brilliant in it. They're like, we're not in this game to make you all smarter. We're in this game to create great television. And that's what we've done. So you can't be mad at it. The problem is what's come from that, and everything that's followed suit, and now that's become the norm.
Right. Yeah. That's why I sit with it. Like, and even engaging people on social media or what have you. Like, I think that the trickle down effect is, either you're here or here. Like, it's no overlapping of a Venn diagram in these conversations no more. And that's why I really don't partake, to be honest, and then it's just a lot of people just repeating what they saw on, First Take in the morning anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at ESPN at all. They got a job to do.
Well, yeah. And they're smart about it. They're brilliant about it. Their job, I don't even know if it was their job. It's their purpose.
Yeah.
Their purpose, the E in ESPN stands for entertainment. That's it. That's what their responsibility is to, and their purpose is to entertain. And if we can find a great form of entertainment where nobody's actually getting harmed, damn if it's good for journalism.
Right.
We're going to give you things that are good. We're going to give you great journalism in some parts, but we're not going to build on that until we see that building on great journalism is going to be a greater revenue stream than what we're doing right now. But if this is the greatest revenue stream that we can create,
that's what they're going to roll with.
You damn right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So I'm with you. I get it. It's sad, and it doesn't help the overall thought process and how we further the conversation surrounding sports. I don't think it makes us any smarter. And it doesn't force us to get any smarter either. It forces us to get more topical.
Yeah, definitely.
But as the word itself, by definition, being topical only allows you to deal with what's at the top. There's a lot of stuff that goes on under that to make the top what it is. And if you spend your entire time dealing with at the top, you're missing everything that's going on down here.
Yeah.
And that's not, especially from a journalistic standpoint, that's not healthy. That can't be healthy.
Yeah, at all.
It can't be healthy because now you're dealing with a headline, clickbait, hot topic culture. The whole medium has become that, or can become that. And that can become problematic because there's too much stuff that will be overlooked, missed, or just omitted, or not even cared about.
Yeah.
Because all we care about is what's topical. All we care about is the headline, not what caused the headline to happen. And in order for us as a society to grow and get smarter, we still not need to know how the headline got there.
Right.
You still need to know the story behind the headline. And I'm not scared of that, but there has to be some concern at this stage that if this continues to go the way it goes, there's no way, unless there's a total pivot, that we as a society are going to get smarter or have deeper and more intellectual conversations when it comes to sports.
So how do you think that course changes, or does it change?
That's a good question. I think it changes when the right person or right persons come along that are willing to look at the stagnation of where we're at and taking in full consideration that there should be growth here when there's not, and taking that risk of saying, I'm more concerned with the growth of sports when it comes to the fan base, their knowledge, and the conversations that circulate around sports. When somebody decides to do that and does it in a creative and unique way that makes money, that's when it will change. Because that individual or that company or those people or however it starts, once everybody sees that success, they will be the game changers. They were the ones that will redirect the way we engage and conversate in sports. But it has to be a risk they're willing to take. And it will come, because what will happen is, as it happens in almost all walks of life, especially walks of life where there is a business or business model attached to it, sees everything going one way. When you see everything going one way, there's always going to be someone or some business that says there's money to be made doing it another way. And once they do that, that's when that shift comes. But they have to take that risk. They have to look at, okay, there's it has to be well, it can't just be done for the sake of doing it. It has to be well thought of. Like, how do we make this work? It's almost like looking at social media and looking at the conversations that individuals were able to have amongst each other. And somebody immediately looking at that and saying, you know what? Everybody seems to be doing this. Let me create something that is doing this in another way. And they created MySpace. But Zuckerberg looked at everybody communicating this way on media, on digital media, seeing a company try to rush out and just do it another way because they thought that was the right way to do it. He said, now I'm gonna sit and think about the right way to do this.
Right.
And I'm going to do it a whole nother way. Because it was being done. It's not like Facebook started this whole conversation between people on the internet.
Right, yeah.
People were doing small stuff, whether it be you went to a certain college and your college had a page, or you had a certain amount of friends that were doing it, and however businesses were doing it. They would have these conclaves where groups of people were conversating with each other through conversation, through digital conversation, through conversation of it. Zuckerberg's like, everybody's doing it that way. I'm going to do it a totally different way, but I'm going to think about the right way to do this as opposed to rushing in. And to my point, what happened after he did it? Everything shifted that way. I'm using that as an analogy of what we're talking about right now. When everybody does it this way, it's going to take somebody to look at that side. There's a way to do it this other way. But as long as I sit and think about the way to do this, that's when the change will come.
Mm.
It can't just be like, oh man, everybody doing, we just do something different, and it doesn't stick that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Change doesn't happen that way. In these cases, it has to be well thought of. And you may not be the one that does it, but if you do it in a way that makes somebody else say, ooh, that's close. I'm gonna do the exact same thing that they're doing that nobody else is doing, but they're missing this one component. I'm gonna add that component. And that's when the component blows up.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's going to take that. It's going to take somebody or something or some company to really look at the landscape of sports journalism and say, this has been going this one way for a really long time. Let's take a chance on doing it another way and seeing what happens. And let's think this thing out. Let's almost make this foolproof. Let's go. Let's get certain writers. Let's I would say it's something like what The Athletic is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be a little bit different than that. It has to be a little different. It has to be done almost by people that are unstained by the current and past foundation on which sports media has been built.
Yeah, because like, well, David Aldridge like at the head of that, right?
Yeah, Day's a great dude. Day's an amazing dude. But in order to have that, and he wasn't the original one. I'm talking about the people who started The Athletic. I think it's a great platform. But for The Athletic to have the change that you and I talking, you can't have the Scoop Jacksons or the David Aldridges of the world to come in, because we're only going to give you what we know, and that's from this foundation.
Right.
You need those new individuals that I ain't never been in that, so I don't know any of that. I know the history of it, but I don't know any of that. But these are fresh thoughts, fresh ideas. Right. We're respecting that space, but in order to have a whole new space, we got to do this way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it can't take that, but it's going to take something like that, a platform or something akin to The Athletic. Maybe even the Ringer, but some other type of platform that is all new minds, all new ideas, all new energy, but still bringing the same level of quality.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's the key. Mm-hmm. That's the key. That's the key. Where they find the Bill Simmonses of the world, where they find the David Aldridges of the world, where they find these great writers and great journalists, where you look at and you don't come in and do anything for us, but you come in and speak to us. Mm-hmm. Like David Aldridge, man, can we pick your brain? Of course you can. We're still gonna do it our way. We still want to pick your brain about, how it was for you and what you did and what we need that. Right. Bob Costas, get over here. We got to talk to you. Mm-hmm. Bam, 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 bam. Cool, thank you. We'll take that, but we still got to do us. Those type of things. That's what I think it's gonna take. Mm-hmm. And how far away from that? I mean, that could be 5 years from now. That could be 30 years from now. You never know. You never know. But I think it can happen. I think that's what it's going to take for it to happen. And to be honest with you, it could be not only that, but there could be a platform change of how we deliver the communication that may not exist right now, that has to exist in order for this to happen. Like the conversation we're having now, the hot take, for lack of a better word, clickbait conversation can never happen if digital media wasn't invented. Right, yeah. You and I could not have had this conversation 30 years ago. So in order for sports journalism to change to what it is now, the entire platform had to change. they had to invent a new platform for us to communicate. A whole nother medium platform had to be established in order to change the way the entire industry started to function from a storytelling standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking what has to change? I'm speaking of the people and the businesses that may have to change their thinking because everybody's doing this, but it could also be a whole nother platform that needs to be invented in order for that space to exist for sports journalists to make that pivot that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, can it happen? Yes. Like I said, it could be 5 years, it could be 30 years, but I think it will happen because we're seeing it go in this one direction.
Yeah.
We're seeing the entire industry almost become monolithic.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and when you don't allow space for diversity, and I'm not talking about like this type of diversity, but gender diversity, I'm talking about the diversity of thought.
Right.
When you don't even allow the diversity of thought to enter into the room, then you're almost setting yourself up for death.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta change and adapt.
Got to change or adapt, or at least you have to be open to other things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be open to other flows of the storytelling. Like, analytics is not the end all be all to sports right now. It's important. It's the hot thing. It's what's being utilized in all aspects of every sport. That's fine, but you can't create a communication tool where that's the only part of sports that you are talking about. And if you do not include this into the storytelling, then we're not honoring it at all. So it's like, whoa, wait. Where's the room for athletes to just react?
Right.
Where's the room to tell the story of the athlete who all he or she did was just react in that moment and none of the analysts played a role in what they did?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the room for a coach or manager to make a decision based on feel? And not didn't feel, I know the numbers look good, but it just didn't feel right. Putting that person into the game at this time. No, I went by feel. Like look, I watched them in practice today. They were hot as fuck at practice today. So guess what? I don't care if he is batting 100 in this World Series. I saw him in the game earlier today. His ass is getting in the game.
Right.
So the analytics say that, against left-hand pitchers after the fourth inning, on whatever, that at this stage of the game with men on base, he's batting below 100. I don't care. I saw my man early today. And when there's no room for that, that's what I'm saying. That's when you're setting yourself up for problems. Because there has to be room in both, because sports functions on both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both play an important and key role to the games being played and the competition that is taking place in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And to seem to be in a space from a journalistic standpoint where only one side of that story is being allowed, to me, is not helpful. Yeah. And we're getting to that point where that's where it's coming to. Where that's it. Because that lane is hot now. Everybody's on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, man, it's even infiltrated the sport itself, how teams operate.
Yeah.
And I think that's to their detriment.
Yeah. I've talked to many players who will never say anything publicly, but take issues with teammates that have that line of thinking on the playing field,
Mm-hmm.
where they're only thinking about their efficiency. Like, dude, this is half of this game is the risks we take. And the other half of it is the reactions that we make. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's that, man. We can do a whole nother thing on that.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
yeah,
But then to me, you're taking out the soul of sports. And
exactly.
As a journalist, I think part of my responsibility, especially one who's built a career of focusing on the culture of sports, not just like I said, the culture of sports, where there is never about numbers or winning or losing. It's about just having that sport to be a part of your life, and you lending part of your life to that sport. Where it's about the kids in Cuba or Dominican Republic or in Oakland or in Indiana playing baseball, not even thinking about making it to the major leagues. They just playing the game because they love it. They playing little league because they want a glove in their hand, and they want to grow up playing catch with their moms and dads and uncles and aunties and bigger brothers and, you know, oldest. That's just what they want to do. They want baseball to be a part of their lives. That's the only reason they do it, and they're gonna do it for the rest of their lives. They're watching soccer not because they want to see Neymar or Mbappe. They're just watching it because they love it. Not that they're ever gonna play it. But soccer has become such a big part of their lives. It's a part of their culture. From a journalist who's interested in telling those full stories, just not having that part of the story be a part of the story, I can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, man. So you know, speaking of that, you know, when you look at guys like you know, Brian Burwell, and you mentioned Ralph Wiley, you know, what they meant to Black journalism, like, you know, where do you put yourself in that lineage and line of succession?
I can't. No, I can't. They're nah, I've never thought I could be included in that. Even though I've been told differently. And I understand what I've come to understand what I've meant to other journalists. So I have to respect that. And it's in the same, but I think in a different way than Ralph meant to me, than Roy Johnson meant to me, than Brian Burwell meant to me. I just can't, man. I don't think. I can't think that. I can't think of myself in the same way because of what they, not necessarily what they had to go through. I think I've gone through kind of similar, if not the same level of scrutiny, of roadblocks, of denial, of not having access, you know, of all the, you know, but I can't put myself in that pantheon. I just can't. The arrogant side of me when I'm writing, oh yeah. Seriously, I have to put myself there.
Yeah.
I have to put myself like, I'll be like, man, Ralph Wiley never wrote anything like this. You know what I'm saying? Brian Burwell never could flip it like this. You know, Mike Wilbon, they nah. You know, they never met a nigga like me before. You know what I'm saying? When I'm sitting down doing what I got to do, that's my attitude. Like, really, there have been other Black folks doing this, but they ain't never met one like me. That's been the attitude.
Right.
But to sit here and, you know, when I'm not working on something, to remove myself from the work, and to me speaking to you as just a human being, as a writer that is not right now in writing mode, nah, man, I can't even be on that pantheon. I can't. my father told me something recently that was interesting to me. And I never thought about this because it wasn't like I was ever trying to chase him, because he was a newspaper reporter. And he told me that after he read my book, he said, "All right, man, you are far, far, far better writer than I ever was." Now you have to keep in mind, my father got nominated for 2 Pulitzers.
Wow.
But he's telling me. Now, I can't accept that. I can't. That's impossible for me to accept. And it has nothing to do with the Pulitzers, even though that carries weight.
Mm-hmm.
That carries a lot of weight. But I can't accept that, knowing what my father had to write, what his writing meant to not just people, but to our condition.
Mm-hmm.
When he was the first Black newspaper reporter in Chicago, when he was one of the first 10 Black newspaper reporters in this country, and he's covering the civil rights movement. He's marching with King and Ralph Abernathy and Andrew Young and Byron Russell. When he's writing those stories, how the hell can I put myself in that type of pantheon? And he's not even recognized as one of the greatest writers in his generation.
Mm.
My father's name is not mentioned. So how can I sit back and talk to you about being in the mention of people that are even above him? The Ralph Wileys, the Brian Burwells, the Mike Wilbur, those cats. How can I can't even think that way. Now, when I'm sitting down, when I'm writing, when I was doing that book Game, The Game Is Not a Game, I'm thinking like, yeah, my father's gonna read this. He'd be like, yeah, he's gonna, yeah. I'm going to give him reason to believe this. I'm going to give him reason for a statement like that to even come out of his mouth.
Mm.
But once you're out of that, there's no way I can't. I can't, I can't function like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't function like that. It's almost like Dr. King when I think it was Don Newcomb and Larry Doby. It was Dr. King who walked up to Larry Doby and Don Newcomb and thanked them for teaching him, without even knowing them, the power to do what he was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
For the fight that they went through as baseball players, Black baseball players, Negro League baseball players, for breaking color lines along with Jackie Robinson. I don't think he had the conversation with Jackie Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
But to Don Newcomb and Larry Doby, told them thank you for giving him the foundation to do what he did. Now, I'm sure Dr. King, in the midst of building everything that he built, in the middle of doing all that he had to do, I'm pretty sure when he's sitting up there trying to change the laws of our entire existence in the office of Lyndon Johnson, I'm sure he's not thinking that Larry Doby and Don Newcomb are anywhere close to being on his level.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In that moment, when he's doing his thing, when he's trying to get done what needs to be done, in his mind, he knows I'm the greatest Negro that ever lived, and I have to be that way to get this shit done.
Right, yeah.
But once he's out of that space, he realizes that it's these other dudes. I can't even compare because I couldn't even do what I did if it wasn't for them.
Right.
And that never leaves him because he knows that's what's important. But if you think another way while you're doing what you're doing, what comes out of you is not going to be the same. You're never going to be able to pull the greatness out of yourself and get done what you feel needs to get done in that moment. So you have to remove yourself and get into it. So I can say in all honesty that I lie to myself enough to believe that when I am writing something that, you know, the cats that were much greater than me are not better than me in that moment. Like they can't think about these angles. They can't use these words. They can't flip these 26 letters the way I can. Right. You know, so I'm thinking that in the moment, but once you're out of that, you know what I'm saying? Once you file it, once you make your deadline, once the story's gone, once everything's gone, and there's no way I've never been able to do that. Never been able to even consider myself in that, in those same clouds. Never. And I've had many people treat me as such. And I always feel undeserving of that. I always do. But I don't want to disrespect the work that I put in. Right. And I don't want to disrespect what my work to some degree has meant to that person or those people telling me that. So I accept it when it does come to me, but I do not agree with it. So yeah, I can't even put myself, I've never been able to do that. Never at all. Never at all. And a lot of that also has to come from me really, really having a true appreciation for the craft of writing. And understanding that there's nothing that I as a writer will ever do that's going to be bigger than the craft. And all I'm doing is contributing to the history of probably the second greatest form of communication, maybe even further, it depends on, it's the second most used form of communication that we have in our lives. Probably talking is the first. Speaking, being able to speak is probably the first. It's the largest form of communication we as human beings have. Second is writing. So when you put writing in that perspective, you're a writer. This game is so much bigger than you as an individual. And you don't mean shit. So all you're really doing is contributing to it. Yeah. So all I've ever looked at is myself as contributing to this art form, to this craft of storytelling. And as a writer, there is no platform, there is no group of individuals that I can place myself in and saying I had such great significance. I would like to think, like I said, you move the minds of people. You make people think. But to think you have great, look, man, every religion we have on this earth started with the written word. So for me to sit up here and think that I'm special when people are writing Qurans and Bibles and all this, come on, man. Come on, stop. There's been far more important people who've done far more important writing than I have. So I never allow myself to think that way. Never. Yeah. But I don't have a problem holding other people up because I think they do, and that's just my personal opinion, you know. So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that line of thinking, you know, helps you keep the work in perspective and also, you know, allows you to evolve and grow. You know, because I think once you get to a point where, you know, you continuously kind of see yourself, you know, amongst the legends, then I do think that kind of takes away from your, you know, your drive, so to speak. So
yeah. And you lie to yourself because you think there's no more work to be done.
Right, yeah.
And as a writer, like I said, let's be honest, it's not about just this type of writing that you do. It's writing in general, just in general. So how can I sit up here and think that I'm this special dude when it comes to writing, and I should be in a conversation with these other dudes and sit back and watch Snowfall and think that I'm writing on that level? You know, I'm like,
right.
Oh, stop, dude. There's no way in hell you should be able to think of how to even come out and create something like that. And somebody, you know, there are different writers that write those, you know, write every episode. And you look at the dialogue and you look at the context and how those stories are being told. And then you look at yourself and you think you're special. Come on, man. Stop. Just stop. Literally, seriously, like, just please stop. You can't watch Breaking Bad and like, these cats are geniuses. You know, I look at the writing and the comedy and like, Orange is the New Black. And I'm like, she's amazing. I'll go back and watch old episodes of Frasier and I'm like, that's some of the most brilliant writing comedy ever. Ever. Like, ever. So you can't just even look at writing in your own lane and say you don't belong. You have to look at the entire, like I said, art form of writing and realize you ain't shit. You really aren't. At the end of the day, you really, really, really aren't. Really aren't. And there are enough writers in certain things that you could just go back and either listen or view or hear or however you want to play it. And they'll put you in check. And they would have to be great writers. They will be your reminders that there's still work for you to do. They will be those like, oh, there's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. Like, I think Ryan Coogler wrote the line that Michael B. spit at the end of Black Panther as Killmonger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ryan Coogler wrote that line. Now, we look at Ryan Coogler as a filmmaker. And I think I have to go back and look. I don't know if Ryan, I got to go back and see, did Ryan write that line? But that's one of those things that as a writer, you're watching the film, but you know that the actor, even as great as a performance as the actor is putting on, you still remind yourself that they're still delivering words from a script.
Right.
So somebody wrote this. That small line is a reminder that you still got work to do.
Yeah, it's always got to have a.
Always got like, look, I've been writing 35 years and I've never wrote one line that dope. And the minute you start to feel yourself or think you're something special in the game, there's always a reminder that there's still work to be done. And if we don't sense that, then that's on us. Then we're much more arrogant than we ever need to be. We're feeling ourselves way too much. Because there are always reminders around us that, oh shit, yeah, you got some work to do.
Yeah, it's always good for that tape to keep moving back, man. You don't ever want to break the tape.
That's it. And bottom line, somebody's gonna do it for you. That's when you think you're right at that spot. Somebody's gonna do it for you. That's the beauty of it. Somebody's gonna be like, oh man, why? It's not even why I could not think of that. You know why you couldn't think of it, because you're not that person. You're not that great. But it still gives you the incentive to be like, all right, let's go. Back to the drawing board. How can I come up with something that dope? Is it even possible?
Right.
You know, and if you're true to yourself, true to what you think you can become, and true to this art form, you'll die trying.
Yeah, man, that's what's up, man. So yeah, just some quick NBA stuff before you get out of here, man.
Okay, cool.
All right. Start at the top. Who won the championship this year?
What sport? Basketball?
Basketball.
Okay. I'm one to never give that answer before the season starts. For two reasons. One, we haven't seen anybody play yet. And I think it's an unfair. I don't want to come off as that journalist that thinks I know everything without even seeing anything. So I can't even give you a thought process of who I think. And it's because we don't know what Brooklyn gonna look like. We don't know what Philly gonna look like. We don't know whose team is gonna look like what once the season past the trade deadline. Yeah, so I've always been like, I don't know, and a lot of that's because I don't start thinking about that. I've never been one of those journalists that starts thinking about who's going to win at the beginning of the season, unless I know, unless there's no question.
Right.
Like with no disrespect, when Mike was playing, and that's kind of gets to that Mike LeBron debate. When Mike was on, once he won that first championship, anytime he was on the court, you knew. There was no question. It's like, oh, they're gonna win it. It's a race for second place. That's it. You kind of knew that.
Yeah.
When Kevin Durant joined Golden State,
it was a wrap.
That's it. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Something had to go terribly wrong. Those times I can answer your question. But for the most part, it's like I don't. Nothing stands. I can't give you an answer because I'm not basing it on anything. I can't even base it on what I saw the year before. But more than anything, I stopped giving that answer because of injuries. And if we look at the last 7 championships, at least 7, injuries have played a huge role in who won and who didn't win championship that year. And we can't predict who's going to be injured. We can't. But we know current history has told us injury is going to play a role.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's part of the game.
Well, I think it's become more than part of the game because of who's been getting injured recently. Yeah, we can't just chalk it up as, oh, Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant went down, it's part of the game. Oh, Kyrie and Kevin Love went down, it's a part of the game. It's wavy. We're talking about seismic changes happening because of injuries, and that's not a part of the game, and especially can't be a part of the game if it's been this consistent over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I said 7 years. I think I was being, nice. But literally the last 10 years, injuries have played a large role. And because I've had this happen to me, and I don't want to be that defensive dude who, seems to be nitpicky on shit. But I've had predictions I've made in the past come back, not to haunt me, but be brought back in front of my face as if I was off base to try to prove me wrong without taking injuries in consideration.
Right.
Oh, you said the Cavaliers were going to win the championship. Yeah, but Kyrie and Kevin Love went down. Don't act like that didn't happen.
Yeah, right. That's pretty important.
Right, but you said wait, stop. And I don't want, and I found myself always doing that. Always like, but stop, wait. Oh man, you said the Clippers were gonna win up. They could have, but I didn't know Chris Paul was gonna pull his hamstring and Blake Griffin was. I didn't see that coming. Nobody did.
Right.
So you said Kobe was never gonna win a championship. I never knew Phil Jackson was gonna come in and coach the Lakers. Who saw that coming? There are so many variables that come into this that I have had literally thrown in my face in public and in private about what I said in October and November that didn't come true in June. without taking all things in consideration. So I'm like, you know what? Before I become that little, height complexed black Napoleon dude, let me shut this down right now. Because I ain't trying to be out here, with the smaller Stephen A. Black Napoleon dude with the complex because I'm short, being angry at the world. I ain't trying to be the non-funny Kevin Hart.
Right.
I ain't trying to be that dude. So let me stop making predictions before I know I'll become that dude. I'll become that dude real quick. So
all right. Who gonna be the best rookie this year?
Jalen Green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's yeah, it's gonna be Green. Even though I think at the end of the day, Jalen Suggs may become, I don't want to say a better player, probably have a better career. I'm not sure. But for rookie of the year, I think Jalen Green.
Mm.
I think Christian Woods is going to be able to do his thing. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to be the best player on Houston.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Houston is in a position right now, once they lost Westbrook, once they got rid of James, that they are willing to, I'm going to say this the wrong way. They are willing to, I don't want to say sacrifice games, but they're willing to not worry about winning games at the expense of making dude a star.
Mm.
Like, we'll win the games later. Right. Green, just play ball.
Yeah.
Just hoop. We're gonna get you. You're literally gonna be our James Harden, but we have to make that happen. And the best way to make that happen is to let you go out there and learn the game, trial by fire.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna lose some games doing that, but trust us on this, trial by fire. Now before your rookie contract is up with this, we're gonna win some games. We're gonna be back in this conversation. Mm-hmm. But we gotta throw you out there. You just gotta hoop. No restrictions, no anything. And everybody in this organization has to understand it. And if y'all are cool with that, cool. It's almost like the philosophy the Chicago Cubs took in rebuilding to win that championship. We're stripping everything down. Mm-hmm. And we're going to take Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, and we're going to build this team around those two. Oh, we got lucky and got Javi Baez, but and we got, Kendricks to pitch, and we're able to bring in others. But at the bottom line, we're taking these young players that are in our farm system that we have access to, that we know are going to be great. Fuck it, we're going to lose 100 games for a couple of years. But we're going to teach these cats what it's going to take to win. Mm-hmm. And to win and become superstars. And we're going to build on that. That's the same thing I'm looking at Houston with Green. It's like, damn it, go out there, you're going to get rookie of the year. But we're going to lose a bunch of games. Maybe for 2 years, we don't know. But we're going to lose a bunch of games. But trust me, this rookie of the year is going to build your confidence. Mm-hmm. And the games we lose this year, we're going to learn to win the next year after that. And after that, we're going to get a couple free agents in here. Christian Wood is going to be like, he's going to have a couple all-star game or two on his belt. Mm-hmm. Now we going. Now we in that conversation. It's no longer the Lakers and the Golden State. Now it's ours now. But I think it's going to start this year with them allowing Jalen Green to just, they're going to let that dude be James Harden.
Yeah.
Hold the ball, do whatever you want to do. Now, is the coach going to be able to let that happen without other players getting upset about that? They wouldn't do that with James because James is James.
Right.
But to let a rookie do that, and you got some veterans on that squad, unless he proves himself to be that good, and that's something you have to do in practice. Mm-hmm. That's something where the rest of the team is like, oh, yo, he that dude.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to establish that.
Kind of like Dwayne Wade did Miami. When
Mhm.
Dwayne Wade got to Miami, they were like, what are you? Oh, okay. All right. We got you. We got you. Do your thing, man. So his rookie year, they're like, oh, we get it. All right, you the best dude. All right, we're good. We're good. So I got Green being rookie of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I think you're spot on with Houston. They got a lot of young talent, and they're gonna lose a lot of games. They're gonna be entertaining though.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have them on League Pass.
Yeah, but a lot of their entertainment is gonna have to them keeping his confidence up.
Mm-hmm.
He can't be allowed to break down.
Yeah,
he can't let the losing get to him, and he can't see other rookies winning and then apply that to him because there's different plans in effect.
Right. Yeah.
And not even just rookies, just second year players.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can't see Anthony Edwards like getting Minnesota to maybe get to the playoffs or do something to Minnesota when he's like, damn, why can't I get there? Well, one, no disrespect to Christian Woods, but you got to have, other players around you. They've been building to this moment.
Right.
You can't look at Anthony Edwards and saying, damn, why I ain't there? You can't get discouraged by that. But that's on the coaching staff and the front office by not allowing him to get to that point. Like just keep we're gonna work on your game as you're learning this game at the same time. Trust me when you get through this. This is foolproof. We got to make this happen. But they have to find a way to also to make sure that they don't lose the other players in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
Because I can see, I don't know Christian Wood, but I can see Christian Wood being like, I'm tired of the Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid conversations happening without me being in it. I'm just as good on both ends of the floor as those dudes. I just haven't had a chance. When I play at that level. I just got to stay healthy and be given a chance to do it. But if you're going to have me on this court and not treat me the same way that Philadelphia treats Joel Embiid, not treat me the same way Minnesota treats Karl Anthony Towns, not treat me the way they're about to treat Anthony Davis once LeBron leaves, if you don't give me that and you're trying to build it off this rookie, no. We never had it. So I can see that being a problem, but that's on the coaching staff. Massaging and finessing that.
Yeah, got to get that buy-in.
Yeah, you got to get the buy-in. You got to get the understanding. You got to cater to, you got to cater to him to make him understand what's going on and give. So I don't know about Houston chances or coaching staff that well to know if they have the ability to make that happen. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but sorry, but yeah, Green. I got Green as rookie of the year.
Okay. So who's going to take a big leap this year? Individual player.
Big leap. How much bigger of a leap can Zach LaVine take?
That's a good one. I mean, they got some stuff in Chicago now.
Only reason I'm saying that is because he's had to do everything and has done everything. And now he doesn't have to, but he knows that he can. Right.
He can kind of pick his spots.
Like, I don't have the responsibility of doing everything, but I know over playing the last 2 years, I'm capable of doing everything. I'm capable of scoring 30 every game if I have to. But I don't have to. So I think the release of that burden and responsibility is going to free him up in a way he hasn't been free. And we've seen him play at, at least top 15 conversation of one of the best players in the league, the 15 best players in the league. You can, it's hard, depending on who you're asking, you can include him in that conversation. So my question to you is, what does a big leap mean? Is that from Zach LaVine being in the conversation of top 15 to getting into the top 8?
Or like you said, in years past, he's had to do everything. But now, that he's got a a solid team around him, can he lead them, like, get to the playoffs, disrupt things a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like he can score, like I showed you I can score 27 a game. I'm gonna score 23 now.
Right.
But that 4-point difference is going to be so much different in everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be so different in everything I do because it's going to come so much easier because not everybody has to pay attention.
Right.
It's sort of like Kevin Durant's scoring average dropping when he got to Golden State. It didn't fall that much, but he didn't. I'm not disrespecting Russell, but I don't have to do everything now.
Mm-hmm.
And as great as Kevin Durant was before he got to Golden State, everybody was like, oh, he's better now than he was then because he didn't have to do everything. He jumped from like, he one of the best players in the league. Oh, no, he's the baddest motherfucking league.
Right.
Because the game came so much easier to him and his numbers. So I'm looking at the same thing. It could be Zach LaVine.
Mm-hmm.
It could be having Lonzo Ball there, from having, DeMar DeRozan there, for having a whole season with Vucevic there. It's like, oh yeah, I'm good. Yeah, like I'm good. From having Billy Donovan there another year, being comfortable coaching that squad, knowing the players. Having Pat Williams there, having an extra year, not a rookie. It's just a lot of things that are in effect right now.
Mm-hmm.
Having my man Caruso there. I don't know, because I'm only in Chicago, so I've been paying attention.
Uh-huh.
But they've had 2 preseason games where they've been up by 40. This the Bulls, dude. They're up by 40 in games. Like, when did this happen? So I'd have to think about it a little more, but it depends on what your definition of a big leap is.
No, I mean, you laid it out pretty good. Like that's that is one of the players that's kind of, I feel like, is on that trajectory, given everything that's changed around him. He's got a good chance to to kind of up his stock, so to speak.
Yeah, and I also think it's going to be interesting to see, and it's not going to be a big leap. But once again, there's that vacillating back and forth between where we start the conversation with this player now to where this player can elevate themselves to be in a whole nother conversation consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 players that come to mind for 2 different reasons, but they were both in the finals. One is Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
I think over the last couple of years, we've had Devin Booker in the top 10, top 15 conversation. It depends on who you ask.
Right.
I think now that he's gotten to the finals, I think now that people are going to have to focus on more than just him
mm-hmm.
in Phoenix. And I think that now that he's seen the finals and know what it takes to get there, I think he's going to have a season that takes him from being maybe in that top 10 conversation to probably being it, without question, unarguably top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who are the top 5 players in the NBA? I think it's going to, this season, he could be that person that enters into the top 5 and stays there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's taking somebody in the top 5 out of the conversation this year. I can see that happening on a consistent basis. Like, oh, he's that dude.
Right.
And the other person I think may take another big leap is Chris Middleton.
Mm.
I think he's got, because he played well in the finals,
mm-hmm.
and didn't have that Chris Middleton disappearing game.
Yeah.
Where Milwaukee lost a game because he didn't have a regular season game
mm-hmm.
in the playoff series. He only had like 1 or 2 of those games throughout the whole playoffs last year. He damn sure didn't have it in the finals, which I was expecting to happen because he was consistent with that. It didn't happen. So I think now that he's gotten that off his back, that he's gotten a ring and was a big part of them getting the ring, I think that mind fuck that he always put himself in certain games in the playoffs, I think that's gone. I think Chris Middleton is just gonna hoop. And I think he's gonna be, like Giannis is great, but I'm not gonna give him the chance to, you all talking about y'all not talking about us as a tandem.
Right.
It ain't gonna be Giannis then me. It's gonna be Giannis and me. The same way it's Steph and Clay. The same way it was Mike and Scotty. The same way it was Kobe and Shaq. It's gonna be Giannis and Chris. I'm gonna make sure of that. But he has to stay close. And I think he's gonna use that. See, I think that's the leap I think he's gonna take. It may not be in a situation where we're sitting at the bar, talking about who the baddest dude in the NBA is, and his name doesn't come up. If we're talking about top 10, top 20, and his name might not come up, it's not that type of leap. It's a leap that we talk about Giannis, but mention him in the same breath. Like there's no Giannis then. There's a Giannis and. That's what I think the leap Chris Middleton is going to take this year.
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that, because that was I think that final series and the whole playoffs really was important mentally for him.
Yes,
because that had been their kind of their track record. Middleton's got to show up. That's why they ended up falling short. And he came through last year.
Came through, and what that does to an athlete mentally can be amazing. I won't say is amazing because it's not, but it can be amazing. And it's all on him. And Chris Middleton doesn't seem like the type of athlete that gets comfortable. Yeah. He doesn't seem like one to get comfortable. And I'd be surprised if he goes into this season getting comfortable with what he's accomplished. I think he will go into it like, okay, now we can begin. Now let's start. Now I can really focus on where I can focus on my legacy as opposed to the little things about, can I come through?
Right.
I come through. I've proven to the fan base, I've proven to this organization, I've proven to myself that I can come through. Now let's hoop. Let's talk about this. What type of legacy am I leaving? Yeah, what type of ball player can I really become? Yeah. So I think that'll be a huge leap, like huge leap. And it may not happen. It's going to have to happen over a course of like 3 or 4 years. But I think it begins now with him. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, man. Well, that's all I had for you, man. I definitely appreciate your time, man.
No. Appreciate the reach out, man. Great conversation.
Absolutely, man. But yeah, man. This is Hoops Unfiltered. Had a great conversation with Scoop Jackson. And where can they find you, Scoop?
Same place as always. I'm not like Puffy said, man, real bad boys move in silence. So I try to keep it low, but you can find all of my work is always found at ESPN the Sports Center, or a lot of times on ESPN.com. Instagram is my company, Strong Island Media Shy. Twitter is OG3 Scoop. I just changed it not too long ago. OG3 Scoop. And Facebook is Scoop Jackson, writer. So that's it. And you can find me on the south side of Chicago. You can find me on the south side of Chicago, trying to make Kanye black again.
Good luck, man. Good fucking luck.
That's what everybody tells me. Good luck. So I'm dying trying to do that too. So need to get our man back. So
all right, man. Well, thanks everybody for sticking around. Once again, it's Hoops Unfiltered. You can catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, on Apple Podcasts, and we out.
Peace.